All right, let's go ahead and get started. I want to thank everyone for attending our seventh virtual Oak Brook Business Network meeting. My name is Michelle Sherritt, and I am one of the owners and board members of the Oak Brook Group. I also am the business owner of two local businesses here in Naperville. The first is called Q Camp, which is a full service digital marketing firm that specializes in creating user friendly websites, social media marketing, SEO strategy, email marketing, and all of your digital needs. My other business is Situated Research, which is a usability firm where we have users come in to test video games, websites, and software. We have PhDs on staff who specialize in usability to give feedback to businesses on how to make their software more user friendly. So, a little bit about our groups. We started 5 networking groups on LinkedIn in 2008. And just last year, we trademarked all of the names. So we have the Naperville, Northwest, North Shore, Oak Brook, and Windy City Business Networks. To date, we have over 215 paid members. So if you'd like to learn more about membership and what's included, you can visit our website at oakbrookbiz.net. We usually meet the first Monday of every month, and we always have a guest speaker. Normally, we meet in person at the Oak Brook Athletic Building in Oak Brook. However, due to COVID, we have been meeting virtually for the past 7 months on Zoom, and we will continue to do so throughout the rest of 2020. We offer our members many benefits, but the biggest benefit is our advertising opportunities. We also have happy hours that we have monthly and also quarterly formal dinner events normally. Those will resume next spring. Until then, we're simply offering our members more advertising options. We are also, for the rest of the year, offering our membership at half price. So if you've been thinking about being a member and cost has been prohibiting that, know that we are now offering it for half price through the end of this year. I'd also like to introduce you to our head of marketing for all of our groups, Rhonda Seelinger. Rhonda, if you want to say hi.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Rhonda helps us with membership questions, group questions. She helps us to line up our speakers. She also does our social media marketing, and she moderates our virtual meetings. Today's meeting will be recorded and made available on our website later on today at oakbrookbiz.net. If you have any questions, please type them in your chat box if you're on Zoom, and we will do Q&A. I believe we have a halfway point that this morning where we will be doing that, and also at the end. So just type your questions as you think of them. And if you're on Facebook Live, just type them in the comments section and I will be moderating those. Today's speaker is Tammy Cook. She's going to be talking to us about getting off our butts. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you. Hi, you guys. So get off your butts, how to make progress instead of excuses. Can any of you relate to the Uh-oh, come on, let's go. There we go. Can any of you relate to the following? I've got a stack of papers this high on my desk, and I was going to file them, but something more important keeps coming up. Or how about this one? I have this huge project at work and it's due Friday. I've been meaning to start it for weeks, but I just haven't been able to squeeze it in. Or my personal favorite, last week was a crazy busy week. I went from one thing to another to another. I did not stop doing things, but I don't know what I did all week because I didn't seem to accomplish anything. Can you guys relate? If you can, that means I'm in the right room or in the right Zoom. So it's a lot different presenting on Zoom than it is in a room because I have no engagement from you guys. I have no idea if anybody's even listening. So please pay attention and give me some feedback. Give me some comments during the Q&A because it's really important to me to just kind of know what's striking a chord with you guys, what you want more information about, and then I can kind of gear towards that. So like I said, it's a lot different when you're presenting, just in front of a Zoom because I don't have that feedback. I can't tell when you're confused. I can't tell when something, doesn't hit home. So I just ask you guys, be sure and drop those questions, comments in the box, and we will address those during the Q&A. So get off your butts. That's butts with one T. I was going to, but something else came up, but I didn't have the time, but I just didn't feel like it. Anybody? Now, those buts are simply, we kind of think of them as obstacles, but they're simply the excuses that keep us from taking action on our goals. And today we're going to come up with several different ways on how to overcome those buts, those obstacles, those excuses, and start to take action. So I'm big on acronyms. We use a lot of them throughout this presentation. You'll see that, but it really helps you to remember kind of how to implement some of this stuff. So the first acronym is ACT. I'm going to help you get off the butts and act instead. ACT stands for adjust your attitude. Your attitude is your thoughts, your emotional state, your mind, and that drives your behavior. So it's really powerful if you can start it from the back end. Instead of trying to change your behavior, we change it from the inside out. Super powerful. The C, create new habits. I like to say that habits put your goals on autopilot. Habits put your goals on autopilot. So it's super powerful to take control of your habits and to consciously and intentionally create them instead of just letting them create themselves and wreak havoc on your life and on your goals. And finally, the T, tap into the zone. The zone. We all know that place of focused concentration when you lose all awareness of time and you're just so focused, you're in the zone. But how many of you actually get there on purpose? How many of you know how to set up your workspace, your environment to get there when you need to get there? Well, you will after this presentation. The ACT acronym also stands for action changes things. Think about it. Nothing you have achieved in your life has come without you taking action. So action is the necessary component, and it's figuring out how to get yourself to do the things you don't want to do in order to achieve the goals that you do want to achieve. That's what we're going to cover today. Before we go any further, I want to tell you a little bit about me, a little bit about myself. And I dropped these photos because it kind of illustrates I'm multi-passionate. That's the core of my business. I work best with people with a wide variety of passions. Now, I love reading, writing, and quilting. So I'm an introvert and I love those things. However, I also love bicycling, hiking, mud runs, and holding alligators. So I've got that extroverted end too. But I have a huge variety of interests, which for me has made it extremely challenging at times to project manage because I'm working on 30 or 40 projects at a time at any given moment. So that's part of how I came to be here. And I have a degree in, I have an associate's in psychology. I have a bachelor's in business. So I have a little bit of psychology in there and a little bit of business in there. And the psychology was wonderful, but it was all a study of dysfunction, of disorders, of neuroses. It was all those things that held us back. And what I wanted to learn is how do we get ourselves to succeed? How do we get ourselves to take those actions to take in order to achieve our goals? And that is what led me into coaching after college. And so coaching is just basically, how do we get others, think of a sports coach, how do you get them to succeed? And, the sports coach doesn't have to be better than the performer. Michael Jordan's coach was not better at basketball than he was. However, you're detached and you can see it from outside and help the other person succeed. Super powerful, and it totally fulfilled what I was looking for in that arena. And finally, the last thing I want to share about myself is that I'm a master procrastinator. I put the pro in procrastination. Don't let that get out. This is just between us, you guys. So studying how to conquer procrastination, both for myself and to help clients with it, is how this presentation came to be. And it's actually my most popular presentation. There are so many people, even if there's shame or embarrassment around it, we don't always talk about how much we struggle with procrastination, but it is much more common of a problem or of an issue with people than you probably even think. So some of the struggles when we're working on a project, whether it's a project of our own, something that a personal goal we have, or it's a project that is given to us, by work, by business, by our business goals. We struggle with getting started. Where do I even start? There's so many steps to take. We struggle with overwhelm. Any major project, there's going to be several steps, maybe up to 20 or 30 steps we have to take to do that whole project. We struggle with organization. You have to know where all the aspects of the project are, where the pieces are, and how to find more when you don't have the resources you need. We struggle with focus and distraction, especially today. I think there's a saying now that, we have a shorter attention span than a goldfish today, if you've heard that. So 7 seconds, you have 7 seconds to get someone's attention today, because that's how scattered we are. When we're starting a big project, we struggle with fear, uncertainty, especially in the business world. We've all heard of imposter syndrome. Well, who am I to teach this, to show someone this, to be this expert here? Yet you need to be an expert in the area in order to sell your business, right? So that's part of the thing that has us procrastinating. We struggle with completing things. How many projects do you have? You're so close and you just can't get those final little things wrapped up. So those things all lead to procrastination. And we all know the side effects of procrastination. Obviously, I'm not talking about, procrastination is putting off one thing to do something else. We're always procrastinating anytime we're doing something. But I'm talking about that something. So some of the side effects, and if we were in a room, I would kind of let you guys brainstorm these with me, because it's much more powerful when you come up with them yourself. So if there's any side effects you don't see here, drop them in the comments. Like I said, it's super powerful to kind of really think about it at a deeper level than just what I'm sharing here. But it drains our energy. Procrastination depletes the energy we have for a task. It depletes our confidence. When you procrastinate on a job, there's no way you can give it your all if you have less time than you need to finish it. So it actually depletes our confidence, because we know, well, I could have done better, which is kind of protecting our ego, but it's really powerful to be aware of why you're procrastinating. It erodes our self-esteem, because our performance can't be 100%. It can't be ideal, because we could have done better if we had given ourselves more time. Obviously, it increases our stress. We all know that. It adds frustration. It adds tension. It impacts your reputation. Think about that. We all know that person who we don't want to be put on a project with, right? I spent years in corporate, and if there was a big project, depending on who the project team was, there were times when I just knew that I was going to be the one doing the majority of that project, because the other person just wouldn't carry their weight. The procrastinators. People know that. People see that. Finally, the loss of sleep or rest or relaxation. Now, the downtime is what fuels us to be more productive during our uptime. So it's super important that when we're down, when we're not doing work, we can release that and not have that spinning in our mind. Getting things done. David Allen, he has this one quote, and I don't know it exactly in his book, but he says, our brains spend the less time we spend doing a task, the more time our brain spends turning it around in our head, trying to figure it out and kind of worrying about it, right? So once you do it, a lot of times it's done even faster than you expected it to be done. Have you ever had that happen? Where you put something off and you put something off, and then you finally start it and you think it's going to take you the whole day, and an hour later you're like, oh my gosh, that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought. So our brain is making it bigger than it even is. So it's really important to think about those side effects. So, and we all know the negative side effects. I mean, you probably do have some in your head right now. If there's all those negative effects, why do we still do it? Why do we still procrastinate? Of course, immediate gratification. In the moment, we are going for the path of least resistance, the easiest path. Because taking action, it requires us to stop, to think, to do something we're uncomfortable with. If we were comfortable with it, it would be a habit already, right? So we're doing something we're not 100% comfortable with, or something new, or something we don't necessarily want to do. So we avoid it. And the two main human drives, you probably heard of this, psychology, are to avoid pain and seek pleasure. And the bigger one of those two is to avoid pain. So if we're seeing something, a project or something, as being unpleasant or being a struggle or being difficult, we're going to avoid it. It's our natural tendency. So there's a psychological principle behind procrastination. However, even though we still do it, we know, like I said, it's always there churning in the back of our brain. We know that it's not our best plan of action. But I want to say that a lot of times we just think, oh, I have to manage my time better. So right now for the next, 20 seconds, I'm just going to take a real quick break here. I want everybody to manage your time really well. So manage the next 20 seconds really well. All right, I'm not going to go for 20 seconds. But you get the idea. You cannot manage time. Time management is an absolute myth. There's no such thing as managing time. Time is something that happens outside of us. It's about self-management. It's about managing our attention. So I kind of made a list here of all the things we actually can manage. You can't manage time. You can't manage the passing of seconds on the clock. They just pass again, you know what I mean? So think about that. There's no such thing as time management. You manage yourself within the framework of time. So it's our attention, our actions, our energy, our focus, our motivation, the desire we have for the goal, the plan, the schedule. Those are the things we can manage. So when you're struggling with procrastination or with getting started, first of all, taking that reframe and thinking, well, it's not about time management, it's about self-management. That puts it more onto your plate because, like I said, you can't manage time. So when you think, well, I'm no good at time management, it's an impossibility. Nobody's good at time management because time passes 1 second at a time. There's nothing you can do to change that. You manage yourself within the framework of time. And that's a super clear or super important differentiation to come to terms with as you're trying to learn to become more productive. So what I want to do now, and I hope you have like a little sheet of paper in front of you, we're going to make a list of some things that you have to do in the next week or two. Now, before I do this, you see the little to-do list? We get a huge, have you ever like finished a project and you get a huge sense of relief, a sense of accomplishment? Well, imagine this. Have you ever had your to-do list in front of you and you write down something on it that you've already done and then you scratch it off? Has anybody done that? Now, like I said, it's really hard being the only person in the Zoom room here listening because generally when we're in a room, everybody laughs at that. Everybody does that. And there's actually a biochemical release that happens in your body. When you scratch a task off, there's an endorphin rush. You have like runner's high. You get that little surge of endorphins in your body. So you have a biochemical response to scratching things off, which is why it feels so good, which is also another very powerful thing to know. Because once you start scratching stuff off your to-do list, have you ever noticed it's easier to keep going and stay in the flow? It's reinforcing, it's self-reinforcing. When you're looking at your to-do list and you can't get started, you just think, oh, that can't, there's just nowhere you even want to start. That's also reinforcing. You're not taking the action, so you're not shifting the energy. It's kind of like inertia. You're stuck in inaction. But once you start getting that momentum, you're building it, your momentum in the taking action way. So it makes you take more action. Really powerful to know kind of some of the psychology and what's going on in your brain behind this stuff. So I want to take a couple seconds to just write down some of your to-dos, drop them in the comment box. We will address this during the Q&A if you want to. Some of the things you have to do within, say, the next week. And I'm not talking about the fun things, like if any of you are planning a vacation, which you might not be during this time, but some of you might. I'm not talking about the fun things because there's no resistance to that usually. But the things that you know already, there's a resistance to. Write down, 3 or 4 things that you have to do over the next week. And if you're not going to write them down, just think about them. At least come up with something you have to do in the next week. It's more powerful if you write this down. So say you've written some stuff down, I hope. Now what you want to do is scratch off everything on that list. Scratch off everything on that list because you do not have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. And when I give this presentation in a room, there's always people who say, but well, I have to do my taxes. Now, just between you and me, I have a little secret here. Millions of Americans every year don't even file their taxes. Okay, so you don't have to file your taxes. You are choosing, you're making the conscious choice and effort to file your taxes because you don't want to face the repercussions. It's a choice. So even when you think I have to do my taxes, you aren't, you don't. You don't have to do your taxes. And that example leads us super powerfully into the first component of getting off your butts. Adjust your attitude. Adjust your attitude. The key components of your attitude, and I've got those little bubbles there, your thoughts, which is the thought bubble, your words, which is the word bubble. And do you see that big heart? Your feels, your feelings, your emotions. Those three things comprise your attitude. And today, the kind of the trending word is mindset. People talk about mindset, but it's not about your mind necessarily, because it's also your emotions. It's also the words you use. And so perhaps your mind drives those things, perhaps not, but I like the word attitude because it kind of groups those things together. The words you use, that little talking bubble, is a key component of your attitude. Words like I have to, I must, I've got to. Those words increase pressure and decrease your motivation for a task. So instead of saying I have to, just say I'm going to, I will. I'm going to do my taxes this weekend. I'm going to set aside some time this weekend and get my taxes done. And I know it's kind of not tax season, but I use taxes because that's one of the biggest things that people resist. So I love that example. Also, your words can change your energy around a job. So I was working with a client and she was stuck on kind of a big project. So we came up with, we mapped out all the steps. There were 12 steps. And so we mapped everything out and she's like, okay, that's doable. We gave each step a time estimate too. That actually really helps you to see it's not as big as you think. And we finished and she's like, oh my gosh, we just made a mini project plan. This is so doable now. And I'm like, well, there's 12 steps. I'm like, it's not really a mini project plan. I'm like, this is kind of a project plan. And she goes, oh, no. She goes, if you call it a project plan, it's going to be too overwhelming. This is a mini project plan because I can do that. So the words you use, it's really powerful to think about how the impact they have on your desire and your motivation to do a job. Now let's talk about thoughts. So who here practices affirmations? When I'm talking in a room, say I have 50 people in the room, maybe half the people they're kind of trending. So maybe 30 people will raise their hand. All right, so who here has ever said any of the following? No matter how early I start, I'm always late. I can never get caught up. I just don't have enough time to get everything done. I work best at the last minute. The more time I have to start something, the more I put it off. I just don't have enough energy to do anything else. Anybody? Because guess what? Those are affirmations. An affirmation isn't just this little positive mantra we come up with to support us. What an affirmation is, it's any repetitive thought that we have going through our head. Okay, any repetitive thought. So think about what you might have, that goes through your head frequently. For a while I had oh gosh, I'm always tired. Until I became aware of that. And I'm like, well, no wonder I'm always tired. I'm reinforcing that thought every day when I say I'm always tired, right? In psychology, they call that the self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's proven that your words can impact yourself and impact others. I gave this presentation in a room one time and a lady raised her hand and she goes, yeah, she goes, when I first got married, my husband used to have kind of an anger management problem. She goes, and so we'd be standing at the counter of a store and he'd get all gruff. And I would tell him, gosh, honey, it's not like you to get so upset over anything. She goes, and, we went on for a few months when we were first married. She goes, one time then we were at the airport and you know how you have problems at the airport. So he had some sort of problem at the airport window and he stopped, he started getting, really kind of louder with the lady. And all of a sudden he stopped and said to himself, oh, I don't know why I'm getting so upset over this. That's not like me. And then he calmed himself down. She was dying. She said, I think they call it brainwashing, but it really works. So the things we repeat to ourselves and to others are the things that we tend to be, that they become true in our life. So I want to take a quick second. I'm an expert in affirmations because this is one of the things that a lot of people actually struggle with. So changing an affirmation, you don't want to switch it 180 degrees. You don't want to say, I'm a procrastinator. I always procrastinate to I never procrastinate. And here's why. When you switch something that you do, something that you know you are, into the exact opposite, when you say that, this is an identity you have. You are a procrastinator. You are a smoker, whatever it is. I like to use smoker because it's so decisive. Are you a smoker? Yes or no? There's either yes or there's a no. So I use that, but this goes with any behavior you have in your life. So if you switch it around 180 degrees, just say I'm not a smoker, when you're smoking a cigarette, you are actually breaking your mind's trust, your inner trust with yourself. So your mind then not only knows you're lying, but now it's going to be harder for you to keep your word in all sorts of other areas. And this is one of the things I work on first with clients is always, always, always keep your word. So don't say things about yourself that aren't true. So instead of switching an affirmation around 180 degrees, you ease your way into it. So around procrastination, I am now in the process of learning how to become, early when I do projects, how to complete projects early. I am now learning how to do projects earlier, how to manage my time better, how to manage my attention better. I am now becoming a person who's always early. I am now prompt, punctual, whatever it is. Now, I first realized the power of easing this in when I was going through my divorce over 10 years ago now, and I was struggling financially. And I started with, I am now in the process of learning how to become an excellent money manager. And I took some classes on managing money. I learned what I could learn. I learned how to budget. And then I said, I am now learning how to manage my money better. Then I said, I am now becoming an excellent money. And today, you can, and this has been for a while now, but you can ask anybody who knows me, I am an excellent money manager. And it's not about necessarily pinching a penny till it screams. However, I'm really good at managing my money, making the budget, making ends meet. And if something comes up, I can cover it. And that's because I worked through it with these affirmations. And because I did it in such a gradual way and I saw how powerful it was, I love to share this technique because it really works. And it works around anything, not just procrastination, money management, anything, diet, nutrition as well. So try it. It really works. And finally, the last component of the attitude is your feeling. Your feeling. Now, we have a lot more control over our feelings than we might realize. I was in Toastmasters some years ago, and I remember I gave a presentation. I was talking about, some of this stuff. There's probably portions of this presentation even. And the man, one of the men in the thing, an older gentleman, he raised his hand and goes, "Well, I can't control my feelings." He goes, "When I'm sitting at the stoplight and the person in front of me isn't moving, that makes me mad." Well, you know what? You can control your feelings. It's a habit that you learn because it doesn't happen to everybody. The person sitting next to you probably doesn't get mad, not angry. I mean, you might be annoyed, but it's probably minor, right? This is something you can adjust how you feel in response to an activity, to circumstances. You can adjust that. And it takes the conscious awareness. First of all, it takes admitting to yourself that you can adjust it. Then it takes the conscious awareness of when it's happening and wanting to adjust it. But when you look at two people in the same situation, they can react completely differently. One of them has more control over their emotional state than the other one. And so that's just emotional mastery. And there's countless books today on how to manage that better. And I like to call that too self-soothing. So how do you talk yourself off the ledge so that you don't erupt at things that would normally drive you crazy? And we're all going to have pet peeves. We're all going to have little irritants, but it doesn't have to be something that makes you explode, or it doesn't have to be something that makes you not able to take action. So if you're really stuck on taking action on a project, on getting started, there's something in your feeling state that's keeping you there. And Tony Robbins talks about this a lot too. He got one. I think that's his word there. Adjusting your, yeah, I think he called it just adjusting your state. But if you're stuck, you don't have to do anything major internally. Just sit up and stand up and sit down 10 times, or clap your hands for 60 seconds. That changes the energy of your body, and changing the energy of your body changes your state, and it's going to change your action. So it's super powerful to know you don't always have to do this from this kind of woo-woo inner place of thinking and feeling. You can do it externally just by changing the state of your body, changing your heart rate, even going for a walk. So all those things can help to adjust your attitude. So those are the 3 keys of adjusting your attitude: your thoughts, your words, and your feeling. I do have a really good book. If this is something that interests you, There's a book by Shad Helmstetter, and it's called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. Super powerful about adjusting the words that are going through your head and taking control over that. So we are going to stop now about the halfway point for some Q&A.
Someone had shared that they make a to-do list and, wondering if you suggest doing that every day, and they find that when they can't complete everything that's on the list, it drives them even more crazy and makes them procrastinate more. I think you addressed some of that, but I don't know if you want to expand on anything there.
Absolutely. And it's a big part of it too is just taking ownership. If that's not serving you, if that to-do list isn't serving you, what I like to do is I have a master to-do list that's somewhere else. It's its own notebook. It's an ongoing. And I do a mind up of everything. And that if something comes to mind that I have to do, it doesn't go on my to-do list for the day. It goes on my master to-do list. And then I can assign it to the days at a different time. For today, what I like to do, and this depends upon your energy and your own schedule, it depends on a lot of things, but I would say pick a number from 3 to 6. 3 to 6 things that you must do today. And in the morning, once you write your to-do list, because the thing is, during the day, we're creative people. We always are coming up with ideas. You're going to have 100 and more ideas come to you. But instead of putting them all on your to-do list for that day, you're never going to get it done. Put them on your backlog to-do list or your side to-do list, whatever you want to call it. Give it a name. Put them somewhere else. When you write your to-do list in the morning, there's a hard line under that. Put a hard line under there. The only other things that can get done under there are things that are actually truly urgent. And there's a lot less urgent things than we think too. But really, you can put it on tomorrow's to-do list. But like I say, I like to keep my to-do list manageable. And for me, that's about 5 or 6 things every day. And I know for a fact, if I have 10 things on my list, it's overwhelming. If I do have to do 10 things during a day, what I actually do is I write my list, and then I take like little notes, and I'll put the next 3 things I'm going to do on that little note, and I'll have that in front of me because the list is overwhelming. And again, so much of procrastination is because we're letting ourselves get overwhelmed. We're not managing our attention and our focus. Looking at a whole list, you can't be focused when you're looking at a list of 20 things to do. When you're looking at a list of 1 to 3 things to do, you can be more focused. So I hope that helps.
Do you recommend putting like an estimated time for each activity, or what you think it's going to take? Do you find that to be helpful so that you're not putting 20 things down that you won't get to more than half of?
Absolutely. And one of the biggest arguments, I actually recommend doing that. One of the biggest arguments I hear is, well, I don't know how long something is going to take. And then it's make it up. So you'll know, even if you estimate, it's going to take an hour, sometimes it takes you 2 hours, sometimes it takes you 10 minutes. But if you have an hour and you have, 8 hours or 6 hours, however long you plan to work, list it out. If you make it up, that kind of gives you those borders. It gives you the parameters of how full your container is. So we only have a limited container of time and energy every day. A to-do list with 20 things is bigger than the container of time and energy we actually have. So by estimating those times, even if you're wrong, starting it and seeing, oh, this is going to take me a lot longer than you thought, that's going to help you to break it out over the next few days. Or if you estimate something's going to take an hour and it takes a lot less, then you can go to your backlog and pull in some other tasks. So I absolutely recommend learning how to estimate how long things are going to take you.
Do you also recommend, like, if you have something that's 8 hours, that's a lot for just one task. So maybe just time boxing it, and for that day, you're going to work on an 8-hour project, but for 2 hours, knowing that you won't finish it, but, then that you put it on the rest of your week or, whatever your due date for it is.
I recommend even breaking it down to something smaller than that. So for example, build a website. Build a website. Gosh, how long is that going to take? Some people, depending on your skill level, because you can do one today in WordPress with, following examples. You can do one today, today in a week or 2 without any experience. You really can. But building a website is so vague. I wouldn't suggest writing down a very vague task like that. If it's a project that's going to take you over an hour, what I recommend is breaking it down into steps that are going to take an hour or less. So for example, watch an hour's worth of videos on how to build a website. That would be one task. Another one would be create the homepage, or model, look for 3 homepages to model. So anything that can fit in an hour block or less, I always recommend hourly blocks. Anything that can fit in an hourly block or less is like one task. And I actually have, I don't have one handy, but I actually have a grid that I work with my clients, and it's 50 boxes on a page. And when they have a big project, we break it down into 50 projects. And I work with a lot of very visual, creative people. So sometimes the list is more overwhelming than actually putting it into boxes. If you know how to mind map, mind mapping is really good too, because it puts in those little boxes and it helps you to quantify and kind of see how things interrelate. But I definitely recommend breaking a project down into specific individual steps that you can cross off and know that they're done. Building a website, that project can't be crossed off, and we know how we get that endorphin rush, right? So building a website, that project can't be crossed off until it's complete. Well, we want a lot more mini wins in order to get us to even want to take action on that. So build the homepage, find graphics for the homepage, create the contact me page. Every single page, every single part of the project, break it down as much as you can so you can scratch off things, because that is what's going to give you momentum to keep going on a huge project.
I think there's a lot of people. You had put one of the, I don't remember if it was on your affirmations list, but about how I work better under pressure. I'm best when I like. What advice do you give to those people? Or maybe those people aren't thinking that they're mismanaging their time. I don't know. I just know a lot of people that say that, and
I'm so glad you asked that question, Rhonda. No, when we're in a group, when we're in a big room, 4 people will first of all raise their hand with that argument, and that's how that got on there in the first place. So what it is a couple different things. One, they've trained themselves only to take action when it's at the last minute. So of course they work best under pressure because they don't know how to get themselves to work any other way. Secondly, when you're working best with pressure at the last minute, can you truly tell me that that is your best work that you're going to finish by the next day? Can you truly tell me that? When I'm in a room with people, they all know it's not. So it's not going to be your best performance. It's not a matter of you work best under pressure. It's I don't know how to make pressure on myself, especially for our own deadlines. I work with a lot of, the small business owners, solopreneurs, or people just working on personal goals. When you're working on a personal goal, it's so much different than working on a goal that has exterior deadlines. So what it is it's learning how to create deadlines for yourself in order to create that sense of pressure. And so what it could be is just breaking down, like I said, we break down the project into little tiny micro steps and then setting earlier and earlier deadlines for each of those steps. So when you have a step to, buy your domain name, that's the first step in building a website. And if you have that by, Tuesday, it's something that's going to take you 5 minutes. But if you wait until you try to do this whole big project, it's going to seem overwhelming. You're going to be in a crunch. So it's just a matter of learning how to set deadlines for yourself to give yourself that sense of urgency. If we have no sense of urgency, it's really hard to take action in the first place. So basically, when I say that I work best under pressure, that means I don't know how to create a sense of urgency for myself in order to get myself to take action.
We have a question from Facebook, and you might be getting to this a little bit later in your presentation, but they just want to know what sort of, they want to learn more about what you do and the services that you provide.
Oh, fabulous. I'll wrap that up at the end. Sounds great. Thank you.
I think that's all right, the rest of the questions. There is a comment too, just about, I like the idea of breaking everything down into a grid.
Yeah, like I said, I work with a lot of visual people, and people are more visual than we think too. For instance, are you the kind of person, when I work too, and I'll show this later, I spread everything out. I need to look at everything. What we do, here's one way to tell if you're a visual person. Instead of filing papers, you stack them. So that stack that I showed at the beginning of this presentation, if you have a stack of papers, but for example, say there's a bill in there that you need to pay. Oh my gosh, I know I put my mortgage statement in my stack of papers on my desk. You kind of know right in that stack where it is. You're a spatial visual person. So you might not think it. And when we file something, like I say, out of sight is out of mind. If we file something, it's like it never existed in the first place. So I teach people how to be a lot more visual, store your projects visually in ways that you can see them, because that keeps them top of mind and keeps them fresh in our head. So I'm going to move on and then we'll cover more questions at the end. But before I move on, I want everybody cross your hands like you're going to beg me to move on. This is such great information. So just cross your hands and now switch your hand so your other thumb is on top. Switch your hand. Now, doesn't that feel weird? You probably have never crossed your hands this way before. My point is, it's a habit. They say that, about 80% of our behavior is habitual. I think I'm on the much higher number than 80%. I think it's more like 90, 95. Just crossing your hands. Anytime we're taking an action, if it's something we've done before, we're likely to do it in the same way. And that's the quickest way I can show you to demonstrate that. Before I tell you how to create new habits, though, I want to show you that this is an example of me adjusting your attitude. The C is for create new habits. Now, what we're doing, we're talking about changing your habits. You have habits that aren't serving you right now, but change sucks. Nobody likes change. We don't like to change things. People like to do things the way we do them. Creating stuff, that's fun. So I could have easily said here, change your habits, but that's not fun. That actually depletes from the fun of the job. Create new habits, that sounds fun. So let me show you how. So like I said, 80% or more of behavior is habitual. And I call that autopilot. Think about this. If every time you got onto, let me just do a time check here. If every time you got into the car, you had to sit there and think about it and think, okay, I have to, first I buckle my seatbelt, I put the key in the ignition, I turn the key, I look behind me. Every time you got into your car to go somewhere, if you had to do that whole little checklist again, it would be very tedious. So we put these routines on autopilot so we can become efficient, so that we as human beings can function effectively in the world. So habits are super, super powerful. But when the habits aren't serving us, that is when it becomes a hindrance. Our results come from our habits. Our results come from the things we do over and over again. Think about something that you've accomplished, whether it's, getting your degree, starting your business, losing weight, getting in shape, anything that you've actually accomplished, you did it by doing something over and over and over again. So success comes from repetition. So habits are super powerful. And I have that 1 degree shift listed there. Now, imagine a plane is leaving New York and it's going to travel across the country to San Francisco. However, when it takes off in New York, it's 1 degree off shift, just 1 degree. It's 1 degree off shift and it starts heading, west across the country. When that plane lands, do you think it's just going to land a little bit south of San Francisco? Probably not. I've never had anybody calculate this for me before. But if a plane is just 1 degree off shift, off course, when it starts, 1 degree will make a huge difference in the 3 or 4 hours it takes to get across the country. A huge difference. And it's the same thing in a positive way. When you make a 1 degree shift in your behavior over the course of time, it's a huge difference. I love to use this question to illustrate the example. What do you wish you would have started a year ago? Even if you only spent 10 minutes a day doing it, what do you wish you would have started a year ago? That totally transforms how tiny steps can have a huge impact over time. So it's really important to realize that a 1 degree shift is all it takes to start getting, to start changing your behavior to make better results. So the habit loop, this is a kind of a really powerful way to start creating your own habits consciously. And of course, I told you I'm into acronyms, CAR, CAR, autopilot. Okay. So if you want to learn how to put your habits on autopilot, how to put your behaviors on autopilot, think of the habit loop with CAR, CAR. Cue, action, reward. Cue is kind of the trigger, the thing that's going to take you to start taking action. So for example, if you want to work out first thing in the morning, lay out your workout clothes. That's your cue. When you wake up and see them, you're more likely to exercise than if you have to actually go dig out a t-shirt from your bottom drawer. Action is the specific action you're going to take, the activity you're going to do, and then reward. And I have like a nice strawberry smoothie there, but your reward does not have to be something physical. Your reward can be something as small as I'm going to clap my hands. That shifts your energy. It can be I'm going to pat myself on the back. Think about when you make a sales call and you make this big call and you get off the phone like, yes, that actually is a reward. You're giving yourself a source of a surge of adrenaline, a surge of energy. So your reward doesn't have to be something physical. I want to make that really clear. I want to talk for 1 minute here about these different things about how to create a habit. So cue is usually something visual. It can also be a timer. If you're going to create a new habit, so conquering procrastination, I didn't get any examples from somebody in the room. I always like to use an example from someone in the room, and I'm sorry I did not get that from somebody. So I'm just going to use working out because it's easy and everybody can kind of relate to it. But you can use this for anything you're going to do business-wise too. So the cue is something either visual or an alarm. And I always say when you're starting a new habit for the first 30 days, it's really important, try to do it at the same time every day. If you've ever done a habit before and created one, after it's ingrained in you, it's really easy to not want to let it go. Oh gosh, well I have to do this, and you'll actually get yourself out of bed to do it at some point. However, for the first 30 days, I really recommend starting it at the same time every day. And the cue does not have to be, getting out your workout clothes. It can be an alarm. When the alarm goes off, I'm going to do it. I used to do toning. Well, I do toning. But when I did toning, I used to use, right now I'm doing toning over Zoom with my sister, which is super powerful because I have an accountability partner. But for my toning, I would use Olivia Newton-John's greatest hits. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. I will admit it. So I'd listen to Olivia Newton-John's greatest hits. It's nice and slow and mellow, and it's got a good beat for, lifting my weights. And it's just small dumbbells, 3, 5, 8-pound dumbbells. So I would put on the music and then I would do my weight workout. And I did this for a long time. And so one time I was in the grocery store and, If You Love Me, Let Me Know came on the radio. And I wanted to start curling my can of peas. I am not kidding. It's like Pavlov's salivating dogs. You condition yourself to doing this behavior when you hear that. So putting in your cue can be putting in a specific song or album that you only listen to when you're doing this behavior. And so by using that Olivia Newton-John, I accidentally fell into this, but it was so powerful how strongly I felt like working out when I heard her song on the radio, and it cracked me up because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is powerful stuff. So your cue can be visual, it can be a post-it note, it can be anything, but your cue is something that's going to remind you to take the action. Then you take the action, you do whatever it is, and it can be a 1-degree shift. If you're trying to get in shape, it doesn't have to be, walk a mile. It can be lay out your workout clothes. It can be walk to the end of the driveway. That's a 1-degree shift. And here's why. If you put on your workout clothes and you walk to the end of your driveway and you walk back, after you do that for a week, you're going to be like, well, this is ridiculous. I'm taking more time to put my clothes on and off than I am to take a walk. And then you're going to walk around the block. And then after you walk around the block for a little while, you're going to be like, you know what? This is ridiculous. I can walk around 2 blocks in probably the same amount of time I can walk around 1 if I pick my pace up. So your habit's going to grow. The activity is going to grow. But starting with that 1-degree shift is so powerful because it decreases your resistance. And finally, the reward. I talked a little bit about the reward. It doesn't have to be something physical. The smoothie is always good, but it can just be, jumping up and down, patting yourself on the back. It can be, playing your favorite song. You can also have your favorite song play at the end. And that's a really powerful way to reinforce the behavior because you're like, all right, I'm going to get to listen to my favorite song. I only get to listen to it, at the end of this, routine, whatever it is. So I'm going to get to do that. And that's going to help to motivate you to do it. So motivator is something that you really do enjoy though. So that's the easiest way to create your own habits. Very powerful because your habits are really what's going to create your results. Jim Rohn quote, which I love. Motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. And I just really think it's really powerful to know that you can create your own habits. And everything you do right now, I really think just about everything you do is a habit. Imagine this, for the people who lose their keys all the time. When you come home from work or when you enter the house, what do? You run around and do like 15 different things, right? And what you're doing is you have a habit of doing 15 different things. If you're one of those people who have a hook by the door or a bowl by the door for your keys, when you walk in the door, your habit is to drop your keys or to hang them on the hook. So both of those, losing your keys or knowing where your keys are, is simply a habit. Super easy to change. All right, now we're going to get a little bit inner mind. What did the Zen master say to the hot dog vendor? Make me one with everything. All right, it's silly, but I like the fact you would think Zen. And when you think Zen, when I think of the zone, to me, the zone is kind of a Zen place. It's that focused concentration. You're not, checking Facebook. You're not sending text. You're focused on the task at hand, and you get in this zone of focused concentration, and you're super productive. So I'm pretty sure all of us have been there, but do you know how to get there intentionally? If you don't, this is going to be super valuable for you. Oh, tap into the zone, because I'm going to teach you how to tap into the zone. So tap into the zone is another acronym. You know me by now. Take time to prepare is T. A is attention management, not time management, or action management, if you want to call it that. P is persistence. So take time to prepare. If you're trying to get into a state of focused concentration, a lot of times what we do is we sit at the computer and say, okay, I'm going to get my taxes done. We sit at the computer. Well, then we realize, oh gosh, I need my tax folder and I need a pen. So you go to the other room to find your tax folder. And as you go to the other room, you pass your dog's dish and you see that his dog food dish is empty. So you go to get him dog food, but you're out of dog food. So you just have to run for a quick trip to the store to get the dog food. So while you're out, you run out to get the dog food. And while you're out, you might as well gas up your car. And you know that there's something you got to get from the other store too. So you run over there. So you get back home and it's 2 p.m. and it's just about time to start dinner. And you just don't know where the time went, but you don't have time to work on your taxes today, right? So take time to prepare means prepare your stuff. If you're going to do something, if you're going to work on a project, have that stuff right with you in front of the computer. Have everything that you think you might need with you. But it also means take time to prepare your mind. We don't always think of, we're less conscious of our minds, especially today with so many distractions and so little attention. The mind is super important. And taking time to prepare your mind, I have a candle there because it might just mean lighting a candle. Set the intention. I'm going to focus on my taxes for the next hour. I don't recommend working at anything for longer than an hour, by the way, either. We talked about time blocks a little bit. But I'm just going to work on my taxes for the next hour. Light a candle. That sets the intention, and it's actually setting triggers in your mind that are going to help you focus. So it's really powerful to prepare your stuff and to prepare your mind. And like I said, the mind, it can be lighting, it can be essential oils. It can be that music. Put that music on. Put Olivia Newton-John on. That would prepare me more than I knew. That would prepare me to do my workout. And then attention management. It's not about time management. Get rid of your distractions. Get rid of your distractions. Put your phone on silent. If I really need to focus, I told you, I put the pro in procrastination. If I really need to focus, my phone's not in the same room as me because my phone is my personal biggest distractor. I pick it up and 15 minutes later, I realize I'm still wasting time on my phone. So I usually have my phone in a different room if I really need to get into the zone and to focus. So attention management, it's also about being in the right place and the right time of day. Know your best, most productive time. Some people it's morning, some people it's afternoon, some people it's evening. Different for everybody. Get to know yourself. And the room is super important because when I worked in corporate, what I would do, if I had a big project, we used to have a computer lab. And I would actually go work in the computer lab because if I was sitting at my desk, I would be interrupted about once every 2.5 minutes, I think. So it's important to know if you really need to focus to concentrate, it's important to know that you control your environment. So go somewhere else. The author Sam Horn calls it the third place. It's a little bit harder today work in a coffee shop, especially in the state of the world, but eventually we'll be able to again. Go work in a coffee shop or at the library, or somewhere else where you can remove yourself from your distractions. And for people who work from home, it's really important to have a third place where you can go because what happens is, say, I work a lot at Panera. You can go to Panera and I have my little booth and I can do an hour's worth of work really quick there while I'm eating lunch. But having that place, when I get to Panera, it's kind of like that trigger. It's that cue. Okay, I'm going to focus here because I only have an hour to get that done. So it's super powerful to have a third place of focused concentration where you're going to, as soon as you're there, your body reacts to it and gets in a state of productivity. So that's super powerful. And persistence. How do you get to Carnegie's, what's that story? Practice. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? You practice. Habit or focus is actually habit. And we might not realize that. That's one of those, affirmations we have. Well, I'm not a focused person. I struggle with getting focused. I struggle with staying focused. I'm easily distractible. I have ADHD. All of those things are affirmations. And yes, you might have ADHD. I work with a lot of people with ADHD, but the more you tell yourself that you can't focus, the less you can focus. So it's practicing, it's learning how to focus, taking these elements and implementing them for a time really help you to see how to make yourself more productive. They train you how to get into the zone intentionally and how to stay focused. So it's really important to keep trying. You get better at it over time. Start with small windows, 1 degree shift. Start with 15 minutes if you're really struggling with concentrating or getting in the zone. Start with 15 minutes at a time. Build up to 30 or 35 minutes. Some people, my window is 50 minutes to 60, but some people concentrate best for 25 minutes, the Pomodoro technique. And if you don't know what that is, look that up. Pomodoro, working in 25-minute blocks. So it's a matter of practice. The more often you work on getting into the zone intentionally, the more often or the easier it is for you to do it. Tap into the zone. Take time to prepare, manage your attention, and persist. So get off your butts. We talked about adjusting your attitude, your thoughts, your words, and your feelings. We talked about creating new habits, and I taught you how to put it on autopilot, CAR, with those little things, the cue, the action, the reward. And finally, tap into the zone. And now again, another acronym, take time to prepare, and then attention management, and finally, practice or persistence. Action changes things, and it's getting into action that's going to help you achieve your goals. I want to open up here for key takeaway and the discussion. Really quick comment. It's not what you do once in a while that counts, but it's your consistent actions over time that what make the real difference in your lives and in your business. If you want to move a mountain, just move a few rocks every day, 1 degree shift. And then I do have, for additional support, I'll talk real quick about what I do too. I work one-on-one with coaching clients. I have a 30-day program, it's the art of the start. And for 30 days, I work with you every day for 30 days to kind of create that habit, create that structure. Otherwise, I have other coaching programs. I work with individuals. I'm going to get more programs in place, but I don't have them yet. So I'm going to open up the floor for questions, comments, feedback, anything else.
There was a question about, do you have a book or have resources that you can share just to read up more on the subject matter?
Yes, I have a handout. How can you get that to your people? I have a handout for sure of the books that I recommend for this talk.
Oh, that's great. If you just want to email that to me, I'll post it. If you don't mind, could I post it on our social media pages?
Absolutely. Oh, of course.
And we have everybody's email address that registered, so we can send that as a follow-up as well.
Perfect.
So if you
yeah,
just get
I will
that to
share
me, I
that
can make
resource
sure.
with you. I have a list of the books that I used to create this presentation.
Yeah. You had asked about people's key takeaways, and someone had wrote in that they're going to be more aware of negative affirmations, which I think is really good, because I do think we probably send ourselves a lot of negative messages that we don't need to be. So, for
I get
me,
a big chuckle. Whenever I show that slide, I'm like, how many of you practice affirmations? Then when I show that slide, everybody in the room laughs because we all do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, one of my takeaways on this is just thinking, we always talk about time management, time management, time management. And you are right. Like, it's really self-management, and the time has nothing to do with it. It's what you choose to do with your time and your willingness to accept consequences as a result of that is really where the rubber meets the road, I think. So using words that are more meaningful, I guess, are more accurate, instead of making it, oh, the time got away from me. No, my management of the time got away from me.
Exactly. Funny. And it's so powerful too. Like I said, when you take ownership of that, it changes your whole perspective. It gives you the power.
Yeah. Someone else said, just breaking things down into manageable chunks, because sometimes a project can just look so big and overwhelming that until you can kind of chunk it out, it becomes a lot more manageable when you can,
Yeah. Like, go for
See
those small
yourself.
wins. Yeah, go
Yeah.
for those small wins. They're so much more powerful than saying, create something. It's so big. So yeah, that's a
Yeah.
huge one.
It occurred to me when you were talking about the CAR and the reward piece of it, and that it didn't have to be something physical. It reminded me of like the pleasure that you feel when you are checking off something, just the fact that you did it. If you went for your run that day, you did whatever, your goal was. That to me is the reward sometimes in and of itself, because you really feel like you've accomplished something. And that is that same feeling of just check, I got this one done on my list. And it does,
Yes.
it feels good.
And even putting the gold star technique, even putting a little star on your calendar reinforces it. So yeah, you have
Yeah.
the good feeling, but make that visual, because then what it does, if you have some sort of visual reminder too, it reinforces it over time. Like 2 weeks later, when you look back at your calendar and you see like 10 workout days, it reinforces your self-esteem, it reinforces your action, and it makes you feel good and makes you more likely to stick with it.
Yeah, you don't want to miss the star.
Exactly. They're silly, but yeah, I have a thing of gold stars. It works.
That's funny. I just remember being a little kid in school, and that was so powerful, gold stars on everything. Another person's key takeaway was just focusing on the 3 to 6 to do versus like your list of, 30 things.
Yeah,
That isn't very
yeah.
practical. So great.
Oh, I
Yeah.
have a Facebook group too, the Renaissance Mind Playground. Find me on Facebook because I share a lot of information like this too. If you found this valuable, you'll find my Facebook group super valuable.
Cool. I'm just checking down to make sure I haven't missed a question or a comment, but I think I have it all.
I think we got it all, Rhonda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terrific. Well,
Well,
here's Calvin too. Oh, here's Calvin to show you what you really need: a swift kick in the butt for $1, which I thought was really, really tied into this presentation well.
Well, thank you so much, Tammy. Thank you for everyone that attended. Great questions, great conversation. I know for myself, a lot of things that you were talking about resonated with me. I'm a huge procrastinator, and I project manage our projects, most of them. So it gets a little overwhelming at times. And so I do to-do lists. And I have a project management tool that I use too. So that's helpful. But I know that one question that's coming through on Facebook, if you could just address it really quickly, and maybe you did, but I missed it. They're asking about the services that you offer. Like you said, I help my clients do this and that during the presentation. What specifically do you help your clients with? If you could answer that.
Oh, sure, absolutely. I don't work with only small business owners, but I work with a lot of small business owners, and it's on productivity, how to become more productive. I have a 3-month coaching program where we kind of transform, we transform their productivity, and that's kind of one-on-one. I have my free Facebook group, and then I have a 30-day, it's almost like a coaching light program. It's a 30-day program where we check in every single day for 30 days. And we do that for 30 days. And what we do is we just get that new habit started. And then if they want additional support, we custom make something further than that. But basically, it's a 3-month coaching program where it's productivity. So based on your own personal goals. It's not specifically like towards building an email list or building a website. Because of my Renaissance Mind, I work with all those things.
Yeah.
So I do know a lot about branding. I know a lot about marketing. I know a lot about building an online business, obviously. And I've worked with clients around the whole gamut, but it's how do you get yourself to do those things that you're stuck on? And that's where I actually, as you know, I have a little bit of expertise around there.
Yeah.
So it's really getting you. And what I do, my goal too, is I teach you these things so that you don't need me ever. Accountability is a huge motivator, but my goal isn't to make you be accountable to get me. My goal is to teach you how to increase your accountability to yourself so that you don't need a crutch. You don't need anybody else. You know how to do this for yourself.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tammy. Thank you for everyone who attended on Facebook Live and Zoom. Again, this is being recorded, and we will make it available later on this afternoon on our website at oakbrookbiz.net. Thank you again, Tammy. Thank you, Rhonda, for moderating. All right, everyone, have a great week. Enjoy the nice, cool weather, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.